Hello and welcome back. We're continuing on with Canto 3, titled The House of the Spirit and the New Creation. A mightier task remained than all he had done. To that he turned from which all being comes, a sign attending from the secrecy which knows the truth ungrasped behind our thoughts, and guards the world with its all-seeing gaze. In the unapproachable stillness of his soul, intense, one-pointed, monumental, lone, patient he sat like an incarnate hope, motionless on a pedestal of prayer, a strength he sought that was not yet on earth, help from a power too great for mortal will, a light of truth now only seen afar, a sanction from his high omnipotent source. But from the appalling heights there stooped no voice. The timeless lids were closed, no opening came. A neutral helpless void oppressed the years. In the texture of our bound humanity, he felt the stark resistance, huge and dumb, of our inconscient and unseeing base, the stubborn mute rejection in life's depths, the ignorant know in the origin of things, a veiled collaboration with the night, even in himself survived and hid from his view, still something in his earthly being kept, its kinship with the inconscient whence it came, a shadowy unity with a vanished past, treasured in an old world frame was lurking there, secret, unnoted by the illumined mind, and in subconscious whispers in a dream, still murmured at the mind's and spirit's choice, its treacherous elements spread like slippery grains, hoping the incoming truth might stumble and fall, and old ideal voices wandering moaned and pleaded for a heavenly leniency to the gracious imperfections of our earth and the sweet weaknesses of our mortal state. This now he willed to discover and exile, the element in him betraying God. All nature recondite spaces were stripped bare, in her dim crypts and corners searched with fire, where refuge instinct and unshaped revolts could shelter, find in darkness's sanctuary. Against the white purity of heaven's cleansing flame, all seemed to have perished that was undivine. Yet some minutest descent might escape, and still a center lurk of the blind force. For the inconscient, too, is infinite. The more its abysses we insist to sound, the more it stretches endlessly. Then, lest a human cry should spoil the truth, he tore desire up from its bleeding roots and offered to the gods the vacant place. Thus could he bear the touch immaculate. And last and mightiest transformation came. His soul was all in front like a great sea, flooding the mind and body with its waves. His being spread to embrace the universe, united the within and the without, to make of life a cosmic harmony, an empire of the immanent divine. In this tremendous universality, not only his soul, nature, and mind sense included every soul and mind in his, but even the life of flesh and nerve was changed, and grew one flesh and nerve with all that lives. He felt the joy of others as his joy. He bore the grief of others as his grief. His universal sympathy upbore, immense like ocean, the creation's load, as earth upbears all beings sacrificed, thrilled with the hidden transcendence, joy and peace. There was no more division's endless scroll. One grew the spirit's secret unity, All nature felt again the single bliss. There was no cleavage between soul and soul. There was no barrier between world and God. Overpowered were form and memory's limiting line. The covering mind was seized and torn apart. It was discovered and now no more could be. The one consciousness that made the world was seen. All now was luminous in force. Abolished in its last thin fainting trace, the circle of the little self was gone. The separate being could no more be felt. It disappeared and knew itself no more. Lost in the spirit's wide identity, his nature grew a moment of the all, exploring itself to find that all he was he. His soul was a delegation of the all, that turned from itself to join the one supreme transcendent was the human formula. Man's heart that had obscured the inviolable assumed the mighty beating of a god's. His seeking mind ceased in the truth that knows his life was a flow of the universal life. He stood fulfilled on the world's highest line, awaiting the ascent beyond the world, awaiting the descent the world to save. A splendor and a symbol wrapped in the earth. Serene epiphanies looked and hollowed vast, surrounded. Wise infinitudes were close. A bright remoteness leaned near and akin, since failed in that tremendous lucency. Ephemeral voices from his hearing fell, then thought potent no more sank large and pale, like a tired god into mysterious seas. The robes of mortal thinking were cast down, leaving his knowledge bare to absolute sight. Fate driving ceased, and nature's sleepless spur, the athlete having of the will, were stilled in the omnipotent, unmoving peace. Life in his members lay down vast and mute, naked, unwalled, unterrified it bore. The immense regard of immortality, the last movement died, and all at once grew still. A weight that was the unseen transcendence hand laid on his limbs, the spirit's measureless seal. Infinity swallowed him into shoreless trance, as one who sets his sail towards mysteried shores, driven through huge oceans by the breaths of God. The fathomless below, the unknowable around, his soul abandoned the blind star-filled space, afar from all that makes the measured world. Plunging to hidden eternities, it withdrew back from mind's foaming surface to the vast, voiceless within us, in omniscient sleep, above the imperfect reach of word and thought. Oof. Beauty, the sight that seeks support of form, lost in deep tracks of superconscient light, unvoyaging in blank featureless nothingness, soul in the trackless incommensurable of past not self and selflessness, transgressing the dream shores of conscious mind, he reached at last his sempiternal base. On sorrowless heights, no winging cry disturbs. Pure and untouched above this mortal play is spread the spirit's hushed immobile air. There no beginning is, and there no end. There is the stable force of all that moves. There is the ionic laborer. There the ionic laborer is at rest. That's still white magnetic light that I was talking about. There turns no key creation in the void, no giant mechanism watched by a soul. There creaks no fate-turned huge machinery, no marriage of evil with good within one breast. The clash of strife in the very clasp of love, the dangerous pain of life's experiment in the values of inconsequence and chance, the peril of mind's gamble, throwing our lives as stake in a wager of indifferent gods, and the shifting lights and shadows of the idea, falling upon the surface consciousness and in the dream of a mute witness soul, creating the error of a half-seen world, where knowledge is a seeking ignorance, life steps, a stumbling series without suit. Its aspect of fortuitous design, its equal measure of the true and false, in that immobile and immutable realm find no access, no cause, no right to live. There only reigns the Spirit's motionless power, poised in itself through still eternity, and its omniscient and omnipotent peace. Thought clashes not with thought, and truth with truth. There is no war of right with rival right. There are no stumbling and half-seeing lives. Passion from chance to unexpected chance, no suffering of hearts compelled to beat. In bodies of the inert and conscience make, armed with the immune occult unsinking fire, the guardians of eternity keep its law, forever fixed upon truth's giant base. In her magnificent and termless home, their nature on her dumb spiritual couch, immutable, transcendent, knows her source. And to the stir of multitudinous worlds assents unmoved in a perpetual calm, all causing and sustaining and aloof. The witness looks from his unshaken poise, an eye immense regarding all things done, apart, at peace above creation's stir, immersed in the eternal altitudes. He abode defended in his shoreless self, companioned only by the all-seeing one. A mind too mighty to be bound by thought, a life too boundless for the play in space, a soul without borders, unconceived of time. He felt the extinction of the world's long pain. He became the unborn self that never dies. He joined the sessions of infinity on the cosmic murmur. Primal loneliness fell. Annulled was the contact formed with time-born things. Empty grew nature's wide community. All things were brought back to their formless seed. The world was silent from a cyclical hour. Although the afflicted nature he had left maintained beneath him her broad numberless fields, her enormous act receding failed remote, as if a soulless dream at last had ceased. His voice came down from the high silences, none answered from her desolate solitudes. A stillness of cessation reigned, the wide, immortal hush from the gods are born. A universal force awaited mute, the veiled transcendence ultimate decree. Then suddenly there came a downward look, as if a sea exploring its own depths. A living oneness widened at its core and joined him to unnumbered multitudes. A bliss, a light, a power, a flame, white love. Caught into all soul immense embrace, existence found its truth on oneness breast. 1 sec, I'm gonna get some water. Oh, okay, we're back. Caught all into a soul immense embrace, SOLE. Existence found its truth on oneness breast. And each became the self and space of all. The great world rhythms were heartbeats of one soul. To feel was a flame discovery of God. All mind was a single harp of many things. All life a song of many meeting lives. From worlds where many, but the self was one. This knowledge now was made a cosmos seed. Ooh, I love it. This seed was cased in the safety of the light. It needed not a sheath of ignorance. Then from the trance of that tremendous clasp, and from the throbbings of that single heart, and from the naked spirit's victory, a new and marvelous creation arose. Incalculable, outflowing infinitudes. Man, just picture that in your third eye if you can. Yeah, I want everyone to try and just close their eyes and picture this beautiful poem in their third eye if possible. It's magnificent if when it happens. Incalculable overflowing infinitudes, laughing out an unmeasured happiness, live there innumerable unity worlds where the being is unbound and wide, bodied unthinkably the egoless self, rapture of beatific energies, join time to the timeless, poles of a single joy, white vast were seen where all is wrapped in all. There were no contraries, no surrendered parts, all by spiritual links were joined to all, and bound indissolubly to the one. Each was unique, but took all lives as his own, and following out these tones of the infinite, recognized in himself the universe. A splendid center of infinity's world pushed to its zenith heights, to its zenith's height, its last expanse felt the divinity of its own self-bliss, repeated in its numberless other selves. It took up tirelessly into its scope persons and figures of the impersonal, as if prolonging in a ceaseless count. In a rapturous multiplication sum, the reoccurring decimals of eternity, none was apart, none lived for himself alone. Each lived for God in him and God in all. Each soulless inexpressibly held the whole. Each soulness inexpressibly held the whole. Their oneness was not tied to monotone. It showed 1,000 aspects of itself. Ooh, I like that. Its calm, immutable stability upbore on a changeless ground, forever safe. Man, that sounds fucking dope. I like it. Compelled to a spontaneous servitude, the ever-changing, incalculable steps, the seeming reckless dances, subtle plan of immense world forces in their perfect play. Appearance looked back to its hidden truth and made of difference, oneness, smiling play. It made all persons fractions of the unique, yet all were beings, secret integers, all struggle was turned to a sweet strife of love. In the harmonized circle of a sure embrace, identities recoiling happiness gave a rich security to difference on a meeting line of hazardous extremes. The game of games was played to its breaking point, where thought self-finding by divine self-loss, there leaps out unity's supreme delight, whose blissful undivided sweetness feels a communality of the absolute. There was no sob of suffering anywhere. Experience ran from point to point of joy. Bliss was pure, undying truth of things. All nature was a conscious front of God. A wisdom worked in all, self-moved, self-sure, a plenitude of illimitable light, an authenticity of intuitive truth, a glory and passion of creative force, infallible, leaping from eternity. The moment's thought inspired the passing act, a word, a laughter sprang from silence breast, a rhythm of beauty in the calm of space, a knowledge in the fathomless heart of time, all turned to all without reserves recoil. A single ecstasy without a break, love was a close and thrilled identity in the throbbing heart of all that luminous life, a universal vision that unites, a sympathy of nerve replaying